Welcome back to the Clinic Scale podcast, the show where we pull back that curtain on what it really takes to build a thriving, profitable chiropractic practice that transforms communities and supports your personal freedom. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Donald Francis, a former British Army officer turned chiropractic pioneer in the Scottish borders. He's the proud owner of Tweed Chiropractic Clinics, and alongside his business partner Laurie Coburn, he leads Luminate. It's a coaching and mentoring program for chiropractors across the UK in brain-based chiropractic. After graduating from Palmer College at age 36, Donald moved to the Borders, built 2 thriving clinics, and developed a brain-based, vitalistic coaching system that's now part of his global mentorship and live seminars. In today's conversation, we'll explore his journey from soldier all the way to captain and then to clinic owner, his approach to scaling associate chiropractors, the challenges of growing a vitalistic niche, and his broader vision for elevating chiropractic through Luminate. Get ready for mindset shifts, tactical takeaways, and real-world wisdom. Grab a drink, have a notepad ready. Let's dive straight in. Donald, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Let's go. You were in the army, like me.
Yes.
Tell us about your path from being an army officer, captain, to entering chiropractic at the age of 36.
Okay. So I had my first chiropractic adjustment in 1977. I grew up in a country that no longer exists, Rhodesia. My dad was in the Rhodesian Armed Forces as a part-time soldier, which meant that he spent 50% of his life as a soldier and 50% as a farmer. And ironically, I kept getting tonsillitis. My mum's great friend had a brother who was a chiropractor called John Howard, who died last year, pioneered SOT in the UK and a lot of cranial chiropractic. And she said, well, when John's in town, let's see if we can get Donald adjusted. And he might be well enough to actually have his tonsils out, because there was such a tiny little window when my dad would have been away and we could have got to town and it wouldn't have upset the rhythm of life. So I got adjusted, and I ironically was well enough to have my tonsils out. So that was my first adjustment, and used chiropractic sporadically, reconnected with John Hart when we moved to the UK when I was 15, and decided then that I was going to be a chiropractor. He was a great mentor in life, a great friend. But I had an itch to scratch. I don't know whether it was because I'd grown up in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, and I wanted, they held the British Army, particularly if in the officer rank, in very high esteem. So I wanted to do that. I got into Sandhurst, and then surreptitiously via a sort of circuitous route, ended up at Sandhurst when I was 19, went off and joined the Royal Artillery, served in Germany, the UK, Cyprus, Falkland Islands, Iraq, Kosovo, and a couple of other places. Anyway, I had a great time. And then one day I fell out of love with it. It happened and I just said to my then very quite new wife, I've had enough. I want to leave. And that same day, just the way the universe works, John Howard phoned me and said, what the hell are you doing? And I said, I've got 6 years to go to my pension point. And he said, well, how much is your pension, X, Y, and Z? And that night I made an application online to Palmer College. Got sent off to Iraq about 4 weeks later. And I know this sounds ironic, and for people who don't understand, I found Iraq very stimulating, actually. Probably the highlight of my entire military career. And that was because it's a lot like constantly turning up for training and never getting a match. You finally get the game. But I knew when I got on the Hercules flying out of Basra in southern Iraq, we used to fly from Basra to Qatar and then get on a jet to go back to the UK, that I wasn't going back. So I got home. My son was born 3 weeks later, and I resigned the next day, actually. And it took about 9 months to get out. But the whole time I was applying to Palmer. I confess I didn't look at many other places. John Howard had been to Palmer, and by the time I left the army, I wanted to get about as far away from the British Army as I possibly could. Although I'm very proud of my service, I think it was a bit warsick. But I loved Palmer and really got into it. certainly academically, but not how I am now. Not as a what I would what I've learned is called vitalistic chiropractic now. I certainly went to Palma thinking I was going to be a back pain fixer, um, and that's not how I see myself now. Came back from America age 36. Um, my wife was pregnant with our third child. He was born, and we opened up Tweed Chiropractic Clinic 3 weeks later. So there's quite a lot going on. And initially, I was horrendous, very unsuccessful. It took me about a year to push myself up to about 50 patients a week, maybe 60. There was no Facebook marketing then. It was all done through word of mouth, speaking at local Rotary clubs, and that sort of thing. Very poor systems. Um, and anyway, fast forward 16 years, and life is very different. We've got very good systems. We've got very effective marketing and a team of 6 chiropractors and 5 front desks. So we've definitely been on a journey. When I graduated, I wouldn't have said I was truly in love with chiropractic like I am now. I I personally think chiropractic is a philosophy which has a science and art. I don't think it's a science, art, and philosophy. And that philosophy is really how I live my whole life. It's the first port of call in our family in any form of health care, although we tend to do it proactively. So the whole family gets adjusted probably at least once a week. And we live very much in that space. And that reflects very much in my practice because I effuse because I fuse my profession through every pore of my body. I think it's very easy just to speak. And when I speak, I'm not making anything up. I'm not pretending to be anything. It's how I see the world. And it doesn't mean it's for everybody. I've managed to grow my tribe of people who are energetically aligned with what I'm after. So in a couple of minutes, I hope that's taken you from my 17-year-old self to my 52-year-old self.
Absolutely. So I'm sure we can delve into some of the skill sets that you learnt being in the military and how you've used that within businesses too. But what I want to also just delve a little bit deeper on is just sort of how you ended up in the Scottish borders, and sort of how you began developing your own approach to chiropractic, and what those what were the key foundations within your approach. So what were the key sort of learnings or people that you used to develop your techniques?
So the first answer is very easy. My wife is from where we live. So we live on a farm that's been in her family since the late 1700s. Um, although we had to buy a little bit of it back. Um, and we've come back into her space. Uh, as a white Zimbabwean, certainly 18, 20 years ago, it was very difficult for me to go back home. The political situation wasn't right. And we've made a very happy life in the beautiful Scottish border. So that's very easy. Um, Actually, part of going to become a chiropractor was I knew that we were going to come back here, and it is rural. It's beautiful. My practice is in a town of about 15,000. Each of my 2 practices in a town of about 15,000. So we're not short of people, but it is not the south of England, that's for sure. In terms of technique, so my mentor John Howard was a great SOT man and very involved in cranial chiropractic. And so I went to Palma. I will say of Palma, it is probably trying to be everything to everybody. We learn everything from deep BJ Palma philosophy to rehab and everything in between. Um, but the technique department there is phenomenal. We learned Gonstead to a very high level, Thompson to a very high level, Palmer diversified, upper cervical specific. And then we had the opportunity to take a range of electives. So I did activator, I did another upper cervical technique called Atlas orthogonal, and I did SOT. And when I came over here, I set up very much in John Howard's model as an SOT practitioner and joined that organization. and rose up, and I'm now a fully certified cranial chiropractor. I taught for them for about 5 years. I don't at the moment. I think I'm on a sabbatical. I'm not sure. But that's my choice, not the organization's. But the one thing that I would say is that I'm very curious. Um, and one of the reasons that I've sort of moved away from uh, the book wrote SOT and incorporated other things was because of the results we were getting, and understanding, why was everybody's leg this way, and why was there always a pain point here, and what happened if I did this, and for ages while I was going through the certification process, I did everything as per the book. And then I think it's very important. And if any young chiropractors are listening to this, there's a great temptation when you graduate to go on what I call the technique roller coaster and just to do a little bit of everything. And I think what that does is it causes you to end up with a real hodgepodge technique set that you don't really know exactly what to apply and when at any one time. I would advise you, my interference, which is advice you didn't ask me for, is find something you like and get really good at that. And once you've got really good at that, and once you know all the rules, you know where to break the rules, then start to diversify rather than trying to arm yourself with such a full kit bag you don't actually know what to use and when. So going through the SOT, and then with John Howard had a great epiphany, I suppose, where he understood something about the inner workings of the cranium. And he gave me that information in about 2013. And a little bit like Madagascar is only just off the coast of Africa, the flora and fauna there are entirely separate because they've evolved on a separate continental, separate from the continent. So I went up to Scotland and I started playing with that information, and I came up with some slightly different information to John. We talked about it occasionally before he died. And it's just an understanding about how the brain adapts as we go through life, as we adapt to stress, very much linked into the autonomic nervous system. Just as a reminder to most people, that's the sympathetic and parasympathetic. And what most people don't realize is that 90% of the autonomic nervous system is actually sensory, meaning that it's not the motor function we learn at school. It's not your heart beats faster, your eyes dilate, your lung capacity expands, and your stomach stops. It's actually 90% of that sensory, and 75% of the whole autonomic nervous system is the vagus nerve. And if 90% of the vagus nerve is sensory, 67.5%, give or take, nobody's counted, of the entire autonomic nervous system is vagus, meaning that how the vagus nerve senses what's going on in the body, particularly within the viscera, has a huge impact in how it changes the brain. What I've discovered is that it's entirely predictable, and that almost everybody on the planet will actually, I use the word subluxate, but if you don't like that word, you could use adapt, you could do whatever, but everybody adapts in a very predictable way, which makes it very predictable as to how we can help you. And it means that we can actually adjust you. If you're going to go out in a predictable way, we can put you back in a predictable way. And with some diet and exercise and lifestyle advice, use chiropractic to completely transform your life.
Donald, you used the word subluxate. I always find that such an interesting word because the fact that you have to bring attention to the word shows a real problem with this profession, that we are not aligned in even just the terminologies that we used. But if you were to describe what a subluxation was to our listeners, because I know certainly listeners coming out of the universities in the UK, especially one of the ones that I went to, they would have trouble with that word. But if you were to describe what a subluxation was, what would that be?
Okay, let me deviate slightly, and then I'll come right back.
Yeah, sure.
Firstly, I believe very strongly that if we do not have something unique to offer, we won't exist at some point. I.e., if there is no discernible gap between us, a spinal physiotherapist, an osteopath, an osteomyologist, a craniosacral therapist, then what what is the point in having a separate school, a separate curriculum, a separate profession, a separate regulatory body, and so on and so forth? That sounds very negative, but if we don't have something that is uniquely ours, then honestly, we won't exist. In America, the profession of osteopathy is barely exists anymore as a separate profession. They are surgeons, they are prescribing physicians, and it's considered a sort of backdoor way of getting into that. Because you can go to osteopathic college, it's a little bit less competitive to get in, but you get the same rights, the same ability to earn, the same prescription. And I think about 7% of osteopaths in America manipulate. Um, I'm deeply passionate about chiropractic. Um, I deeply own the principle, and we could argue that, but that's our problem in chiropractic. We like to argue about anything that might be different rather than looking at what we have that's similar. The word subluxation, and I'm very happy to be corrected, I think was first used by a man called Solon Langworthy. The word luxate or luxation in Midwestern vernacular in about 1905 meant a joint dislocation. And what they had was a sub-luxation, which was something wrong with a joint that was less than a full dislocation. You could palpate it, you could correct it, and it also had neurological consequences. I went to Palmer College, and in fact, in most American schools, there's no problem with that. What you feel and palpate in somebody's spine, and I'm a cranial chiropractor, so spine, cranium, pelvis, I have no problem calling it a subluxation. That was the word that I was used. We do have a profession of two halves, and quite a lot of people in between. One of the problems that I have as a business owner is that how I see the profession and how our young graduates are coming out. If someone for 4 or 5 years has been told that people like me who use the language that I use are wrong and bad people, there's quite a lot of unpacking to do to get through. I've never had a problem with the word subluxation, and I like it. What is a subluxation? A lot of people argue about this. I'm going to say that slightly different to some people, a subluxation, rather than being the cause of ease or the lack of ease within the body, is actually an adaptation to the stress, to our body's adaptation to the stress response. And this is part of my brain-based. So let's just talk about the story of a bottle of wine. I happen to like wine. I just don't drink it anymore because at my tender age of 50 plus, it has a fairly disastrous effect on my physiology. But if I were to drink a bottle of red wine, the primary organ that would process those chemicals would be my liver. This is connected up through my right vagus, up through my the jugular foramen and the side of my head, and the sympathetic nerves would go back to about T8. If my liver has to adapt to a serious chemical load, it's going to transmit on both vectors, up through the vagus, coming into the cranium here, and back to T8, back to the spinal cord. At both levels, you will notice neurological and therefore physical adaptive changes. At T8, you will definitely be able to palpate a joint that is, using an old word, lost its juxtaposition with the one above and one below it, i.e., you can feel that it's fixed. Cranially, we can unpack that later if we want to go down that. The point is, there is an adaptive response in the body that we as a chiropractor, with our fingers, can feel, and then with precision, put a correction in, which is going to restore that neurological function at that joint. Any joint that lacks any form of function has so much neurological consequences of that. Not only does the joint itself stop working, but everything associated with that joint is affected. So as we unpack what I call a subluxation, what some people might call a fixation, we're going to change a lot of neurology, not only at that level, but everything that goes through that.
Now, the problem I have with that, Donald, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here because that's my role as the interviewer here.
That's fine.
Would you say that two people in the same practice would find the same subluxations?
So there are a lot of studies in interreliability, and the answer is if they are trained to a similar level, the interreliability is very high. So if you're using Gonstead, for example, and you're using scoping, the interreliability is incredibly high because you're using a little instrument that's going to detect skin temperature or skin transmission changes. If you're using pure chiropractic, so I have 5 chiropractors in my business. Through brain-based chiropractic, I have simplified the diagnostic process considerably to just 3 questions, and that basically puts people into 3 different boxes. If they get those 3 different boxes accurately, that very simple that they should at least, I'm going to use the word block or start the adjusting process in the same way. Because everybody's skill set is very much formed by their education, their experience, their results, and so on, inside that framework, there is some artistic license. But I do understand the naysayers. There are some tremendous studies showing actually, even on motion palpation, there is a tremendous amount of reliability. The problem is, as you know, Andy, do you remember the first day you palpated somebody's spine? I bet you couldn't even find the difference between one segment and the next. I was the same.
Yeah,
Tissue.
absolutely. We all start somewhere, right? So with palpation, it takes years to develop your palpatory skills. What you can feel. I've been taking, so I've been doing some training with some new graduates at our clinic in Christchurch, Dorset, and you can just see the whites on their fingers when they're palpating. And I was like, if you can see the whites, you're pushing too hard. And that is not a good way to palpate. Actually, less is more. The nerve endings in the fingers, you can feel so much more if you're actually light with your palpation. So absolutely, you have to start somewhere, and you've got to get the reps in.
Sure. And the chiropractic, because it is a manual, I don't want to use the word manual therapy, but because it is a manual system of correction, it is an art form. You play pickleball, I play tennis, um, you do boxing. The point is that there's such a fine skill set in that. No matter how intelligent you are, no matter how fit you are, and no matter how strong you are, as you bring all of your art form into bear, you're going to have a very different effect. And I don't think we'll ever get away from that. Many people have tried to systematize everything, but how you approach another human being has evolved over time. I'm able to do more in about 3 or 4 minutes now than I was in 20 years ago, if you know what I mean, just through sheer repetition and precision, presence, and the constant and repetitive use of my skill set means that my ability, in my opinion, to find what's wrong and what needs correcting really quickly is much better than it was. So the interreliability, depending on the system you use, I can go with that because we are a different skill set. But I've got friends who are veterinarians and dentists and GPs, and one of my great friends is a general practitioner, medical doctor. And and she's teasing me about something, and I said, well, what were you like 25 years ago? And she says, oh God, I don't even want to go back there.
Yeah.
So everyone's on a journey, but I do understand that. But there are some good studies in interreliability.
Yeah, so I think certainly the interreliability within practices, if you're training together regularly, then you'd like to think it's quite high. And if you've got a good system to go through, like you do, like you mentioned, there's those 3 steps that you would try and ascertain from the client. I would like to think they would be quite high, the interreliability scores and that. But I think between professionals, between chiropractors in different clinics, in different parts of the country and from different colleges, you probably find the interreliability would be a bit less
Uh,
within chiropractors. And I think that that's an issue because you see one chiropractor, they'll say one thing and another one will say a different thing. And therefore you lose trust within the profession. But there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. There's lots of different ways to do chiropractic and be a chiropractor. Chiropractic is done by hand, and there's loads of ways to do that.
So we come down. I'm gonna segue slightly into vitalistic chiropractic. So I'm not overly in love with the word vitalistic, I won't lie, but apparently I'm a vitalistic chiropractor. I went to Palmer, so I just graduated and called myself a chiropractor. And it was only through social media that I discovered I was a vitalistic chiropractor. Um, and and then it took years of unpacking to work out exactly what that means. But it just basically means that the body's an intelligent organ. When I was in Iraq in 2004 and the outside temperature was 50 degrees and we were in the Arabian Sea and the humidity was about 90%. It was bloody miserable. My internal body thermostat had me at 37. And when I was in the Falkland Islands in 2000, just off the coast of Antarctica, my internal body temperature was 37. And we're intelligent by design. I've got two eyes on the front of my head, not on the back of my head. So vitalistic just makes the assumption, or makes the proposition, that we are intelligent, and every one of somewhere between 40 and 100 trillion cells, we could argue about that, in my body started with one cell. So every strand of DNA is identical, and in that single strand of DNA was all the information to make me a 5'10" Caucasian, blue-eyed male, with big ears and all the rest of the other attributes that I have. And each one of my cells still has that potential. I cut my finger with a chisel. There's a nasty scar there. And, my body didn't need any instructions on how to fix that. And when someone's back is sore, all it needs is, it knows how to fix it. It just can't understand what's wrong and send the right messages there, because if we want to delve into neurology, proprioceptively and neurologically, there's a dysfunctional set of instructions going on.
Yeah, so essentially what you're saying, what I'm hearing, is that you got your body into this state, therefore you can get yourself out of it, but sometimes you need a facilitator to do that because of the way the brain and spinal cord is wired.
So every one of my wrinkles here is testament to my 51 years and nearly 3/4 on the planet. Even though every one of my cells in the body is identical to the one my mum and dad gave me all those years ago, my body has accrued 51 years worth of mileage, and every time my DNA and my RNA makes new proteins, there are little problems that step into that. I can't undo that. But as my body goes through life and I adapt to multiple stressors, you were in the IDF, I was in the army. I don't know what you guys were like, but we used to drink like they're going to steal alcohol. And I lived in Germany, and smoking was very fashionable. And, I've done a few things that I'm not so proud of in my life. I got fat for a while. I got slim again. But all of that is written down on my nervous system, and my body has got to adapt to all of that. Stress, you talk about mental stress, I actually love running a business, but I find it probably the most stressful thing in my life. I love my clinic time. I don't, after 20 years in chiropractic, I don't find that stressful at all anymore. I do find motivating associates and getting people busy, I find that more stressful, and dealing with human resources and that. But that's a mental stress that we've got to adapt to. All of those adaptations write down the evidence of those adaptations in our nervous system. I believe, which means it's true, because if I believe it, it's true, to me anyway, that we can actually palpate, find, and locate how our neurology is adapting through our spinal, cranial, and pelvic system. I'm sure of that. And every day I go to work with that surety. And I live in a waiting list referral-based practice in my own practice. So I must be getting something right, because I don't personally go looking for business. It finds me.
So business finds you now. So that's a very interesting point to make. And, as part of this podcast, we're trying to bring on what I would like to say is the biggest pioneers within chiropractic within the UK right now and abroad. We have some people from the US, amazing chiropractors from the US, hopefully joining the podcast soon. Um, but that's why I chose you, Donald, to join the podcast, because I think you've got so much value to give to our listeners, and you've got so much experience. You know, coming from a military background, I think there's so many lessons that I've personally learned from the military and definitely applied that to business, and that's really helped me. But there's also some things that I didn't learn in the military that I've had to adapt to, because I've realized that not everyone has done the military, so I have to tailor the way I communicate to people based on what they need and what's going to help them grow. So I would say like a top quality of a chiropractor, especially a business owner, is being adaptable to who's in front of you. And so you have to almost change your tone. You have to mirror the behaviors. Even the language that you use needs to sometimes change depending on, you know, if it's a client in front of you, if it's a staff member in front of you. All of that needs to be tailored to that individual.
Absolutely.
But Donald,
But
I wanted I wanted to just tap into some of your business know-how. Um, uh, one of my mentors is Russell Brunson, and he always talks about building a value ladder. And I've noticed you've got this value ladder going on, and I want to hear about sort of you started from this vitalistic chiropractic, although you didn't realize you were vitalistic and probably until you started exploring social media, you mentioned before. Um, Now, what was your strategy? So you started with vitalistic chiropractic. Was that the thing that allowed you to elevate from that position to then move into like the Luminate space with your coaching and brain-based chiropractic business?
it's funny what puddle you float in. Um, I've been a qualified chiropractor for 16 years and in the chiropractic space for 20. Um, in one puddle I floated in, so say the SOT community for a long time. You know, I was one of the guys with the really big numbers pretty early on. You know, probably 3 years into practice. Big numbers in a smaller puddle, different intention, and so on and so forth. I would say, interestingly, the last 5 years, probably since just before COVID, so maybe 6 or 7 years, has been the period of exponential growth. It's like compound interest, actually. You just keep going and keep going and keep going, and eventually there's compound interest with money, but there's also compound interest with your skill set. You know, it's that 1% every day of improvement. We talk about values. I know that there isn't anybody on the planet that I can't make a difference to, but I'm reasonably certain that the difference that I can make to everybody doesn't have value or enough value to them. So I'm really happy in my clinic space now, mostly because I'm really happy with who I am as a human being and as a chiropractor, that they talk about those 4 questions, you know, what's wrong with me? How long will it take to fix? What's it going to cost? Sorry, can you help me? How long is it going to take and what's it going to cost? And I agree with all of that,
Yeah.
but I'm going to reposition that into 3 questions. That is, you know, what's wrong with you? This is your solution. Do you want it?
Do you want it?
Do you
Okay.
want it? Now,
Because I think what you're referring to there is Tim Young. I know I followed some of his work, and it's like what 4 things: what the problem is, what we can do to help, how much it's going to cost, and
yeah, I don't think
when we're
Tim
going to
invents that.
start.
We certainly heard that in Palmer, but I'll give Tim a lot of credit for what he's.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, so some of the things that he preaches are just incredible, and how he's shortened it down and he's really condensed it. And I think that's what you're doing here too. You're just condensing those key things that what the chiropractor needs to know and what the patient needs to know, and a lot of the external things beyond that is there's a lot of fluff that's come into the chiropractic space in terms of history taking. But I think it also comes from a place of fear as well, as to like, you know, are we going to hurt the patient? And I think that's also, you know, some of the colleges as well that push that fear. But
Sure. I think, sorry,
yeah,
I'm just going to say, I think,
yeah,
you know, I practice with no fear at all. Not the GCC. Listen, I'm not stupid. I'm really, you know, but I don't fear and any adjustment that I'm going to do. And we could unpack that. I think I agree. I agree with you. But those 4 questions that Tim says, what's wrong with me? Can you help me? How long will it take? And what's going to cost?
Mm.
Those I put into what I call the solution. So I think there's 3 questions. What's wrong with me? This is what's wrong. Then I have a solution. So the first question is this is what's wrong with you. Then there's the answer. Sorry, let me start that whole again. We might edit. What's wrong with me? This is what's wrong with you, and this is the solution. And the third question I'm going to say is, do you want it? I don't mess around and quibble about care plans. I just say, this is what's wrong with you. This is what it's going to take. This is what it's going to cost. And I don't budge from that. And the third question, do you want it? Is if you want what I can give you, great, let's get going. But if you don't, that's okay. We're still friends. By the way, if you ever want it, I'm still here. That's been a game changer in my life because a lot of chiropractors end up in a negotiation.
Yes.
Oh, and
Yeah.
that drives me potty. Oh, well, this is what's wrong with you. This is what I can do. And they say, well, I can't afford that. They say, oh, well, how about we try a little bit of this and a little bit of that? And they immediately lose their integrity of what they've said. This is what's wrong with me. This is what we can do. Do you want it? And that third question, do you want it? It's really freed me up because if you don't what I've got, if you value your 55 pounds worth of Chinese takeaway on a Sunday night over the 55 pounds worth of health value that I can give you on Monday, that's cool because we're in the wrong set of values right now. One day, that 55 pounds worth of Chinese on a Sunday night is probably going to make my 55 pounds on a Monday morning look really cheap. But right now, our values are so dissonant that actually we're in the wrong place. And so let's just stop our business relationship right now before I have made you promises I can't keep and you've started a journey that's unlikely to lead to any success because you have no intention of fulfilling the criteria we set out at the beginning. And that I find really hard with young grads because they don't own the value of chiropractic. So they will negotiate, they will add things in, they will talk the hind leg off a donkey because they think that's adding value in. They'll fill the time as much as possible because they think time is value. What used to take me half an hour in a closed room, I can do in 3 to 5 minutes because I have absolutely categorically said to the patient, this is how long it's going to take. This is what an adjustment looks like. We're going to remeasure you this many times, this how often, and this is what I expect. Do you want it? Yes, let's go. No.
Donald, is your practice, and you personally, are you seeing the most amount of clients per week you've ever seen in your whole career at this stage?
Yes, per hour, but not overall because since I've become a business owner, I've cut down my hours from 25 down to 15. So I on a good week, I currently see. Listen, people get their knickers really in a twist about numbers, but I was operating around the 220 mark. I'm now operating somewhere around about the 140 mark. A good week, 160. A bad week, 125. We could talk about that sine wave if you want, but I do that in 15 hours. I'm really happy. I'm only open two days a week, and then I do a funny little 1.5 hour shift on a Friday, which I was going to kill, but it was my favorite people. They just every time we got to the end of their plan, they just rebooked, and there's no they just turn up every Friday, and I love them. So before I start my coaching business on a Friday, I go in for an hour and a half, adjust people, and then crack on. So I love it. I'm open 2 days. If they can't make those 2 days, they can go and see one of my associates. But luckily, I've reached the stage in my career where people actually might move their life a little bit around my availability, which is a very nice place to be.
And it should be that way with your level of experience and the value that you can provide those patients. It should be that way. And I think that comes from a point of scarcity almost is, we talk about scarcity a lot in sales. And what you want as a chiropractor is you want that patient to need you more than you need them. And as soon as that mindset shifts, you will attract more clients towards you and you'll get more referrals because the mindset is so different that they'll think, oh crap, like this chiropractor is happy for me to walk away. They don't care about the sale. They don't care if I walk away. I mean, they care, they want to help me, but it's going like in with that high intention of wanting to help that person, but a low attachment to the outcome of whether they sign up
Absolutely.
to be a client or not.
If I were to give one really, really valuable, in my opinion, piece of interference to everybody of your listeners, totally lose attachment to their decisions. You know, we've got two things we need to dissuade them about. One, that the pain is the problem. The pain is never the problem. You only interpret pain in your brain through nociceptive firing. And two, that you're going to cure them. And as far as I know, and different different religions could argue about this, but the last person who potentially cured anybody was Jesus Christ. The rest of us are going to be involved in their healing process. But if their values aren't in that, and they would prefer that Chinese takeaway, you have a values dissonance. And just take yourself, they're probably not making that decision because they don't like you. Maybe if you're not very nice and you're too aggressive, maybe that's true. But they're making that decision based on their values. And just take yourself out of any form of worry or concern about what their answer is, because it's based on the values of their life. And you will, if you do that, you will maybe grow slightly slower, but you'll grow a tribe of people who really like you. And that makes turning up to work really fun, because I look at my diary tomorrow on a Tuesday. I've got such a busy shift tomorrow, and every single one of them I love seeing. There's nobody on that list that makes my heart sink.
Yeah, you've attracted your ideal, what we like to call in clinic scale, we talk about who's your avatar client. I said, if you tell us who you want in front of you, who's your ideal patient, whether they're an athlete, are they a geriatric patient, do you just want to treat babies and toddlers or pregnant patients? You tell us who you want and we'll help you get them in front of you, because we're very good at marketing, that we can tailor our marketing towards that. But you need to know who you want. I was on a call earlier today with a lead that we had come through. I was like, I can't help you unless you know, first of all, who's your avatar client, what the purpose of the business is, what's the passion behind it, and what's your mission? Like, what are you hoping to achieve here? I said the business idea sounds great, but you don't know those things. So I said, on our next call, I want you to tell me what those things are, and then we can design a program or some coaching that will help you achieve that. And that's what we want to hear from our clients. You mentioned to me, Donald, about one of your challenges in business, and I want to just delve into that a little bit more. You've obviously achieved amazing things with Twee Chiropractic Clinics and Luminate. But what you said, one of your biggest business challenges to me was scaling associate chiropractors in the vitalistic space.
Okay.
What do you mean by that? I mean, and how are you going about tackling that?
This is a challenge. And it's mostly unpacking the schools. Listen, the schools we have, I think, do a pretty good job in teaching people how to move a bone, anatomy, physiology, physical diagnosis, and all of those things. And they really are equipping people to be therapists to treat symptoms. My personal headspace is that symptoms are important because they're very important to that client, to that patient. But I don't treat symptoms. There's not a single thing in my entire bandwidth that is specific towards pain, for example. And so our challenge, and I'm really happy that I'm in what's known as the vitalistic headspace. This is also known as the life model, and that my intention for everybody in front of me is not only to take them on a journey from where they are, which is usually symptomatic, to being asymptomatic, to being much better than that, so that they can live a life of tremendous freedom. Basically going out and doing whatever they like, because their body is working in such a great way that not only will they not be sore, but it's working much better than they would do. Now, here's the key: if they didn't see me, what we do is we graduate a lot of people who care a lot. they care a hell of a lot. They care about themselves most, but that's they probably wouldn't like to admit that, but that's who they do. They care about themselves more most, and then they really care about the people in front of them. Sometimes a little too much, and that's a direction we can go on as well. But they see themselves as fixing that person's broken problems. Now, one thing I got out of Palmer was a real acknowledgement that actually it's the body that does the healing, not the doctor. So I have taken myself out of that equation. That doesn't mean that I can't smack somebody on the back of the head with intention and they're going to get better. It still requires me to find out what's going on in their body and put it right. But all of that healing is done by the body. I am not fixing anything. And I'm really clear about that. It's one of my boundaries. I'm not fixing anything. And everything you do, exercise, diet, nutrition, that's going to influence how quickly you get better. One of the problems is that we're graduating therapists. Therapy means that I'm going to do something to you which is going to heal you. And that's a big difference. So the biggest challenge we have is not that people can't move a bone, can't adjust, don't know the different anatomy, physiology, although depending where they went to school, that can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge. But the biggest problem is unpacking that 5 years, 4 or 5 years, or if they went to South African school, 6 years of training, and also being told that people like me are naughty, bad people who are stealing and
Yeah, that's an issue. That is an issue. I mean, who is the chiropractor that's really changing society and who are really transforming lives? And isn't that what we're doing this all for, right? As chiropractors, isn't that what our founding fathers, D.D. Palmer, B.J. Palmer, isn't that what they wanted us to?
absolutely.
Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and advertise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. I've said that on a previous podcast
Yeah,
episode.
DJ Palmer. Yeah.
BJ Palmer said it right, right? I would say, is it better to work smart and advertise, but rather than work like hell? Because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you need a bit of balance there. But
Yeah.
that was a man on a mission. That was a man on a mission. So, if we are unable to do that, if we are unable to transform lives, then what the hell is it all for? So if the colleges don't have this mission and this drive behind them to transform society and make us primary healthcare, like why should you not see a chiropractor first for back pain, neck pain, headaches, or any kind of symptom or health expression? Why would you not see a chiropractor first if we know as chiropractors, if you are more of the vitalistic headspace or you're here to help people, if we know that the power that made the body heals the body, then why are people not coming to see us first?
Well, I totally agree. I totally agree with you, and I think we should. But we've got a lot of cultural issues to deal with. And the other thing is, we when I say cultural, and we could open up chiropractic, but just we live in Britain with our National Health Service, and I won't lie. When I was at university in America, we did not have health insurance. So when we landed back in the UK with my pregnant wife and my 2 children, and we suddenly had the warm security safety blanket of the National Health Service wrapped around us, it was very reassuring, I must say. But that freedom gives us as human beings, and we're not all disciplined people, the ability to do what the hell we like in our lives, and we think we're okay until something goes wrong. Not many people, and the word that I like to use in my own life is not many people are proactive with their health. They're mostly reactive. Chiropractic can be reactive, but then what we like to engender people is an idea of proactivity, that you're gonna deal with problems, much like, and I think
And
dentistry.
that's being proactive with things like maintenance care and delving more into health optimization and wellness as opposed to reactive. Oh, I've just injured my back because I've been bending badly for the last 10 years and only now will I see a chiropractor. But obviously, people are going to enter the space at different points, and that's all to do with how we market the profession, I think. And Going beyond that, it's also starting them young. Why are people not bringing in their babies and toddlers in the first few months, the first couple of weeks even? Why are they not taking them to the chiropractor to be checked? Surely that's the prime time. if you for our listeners, if you want to hear more about pediatrics and babies, listen to our episode with Dr. Steve Williams from St. James Chiropractic. That was a very enlightening episode for myself personally. But wow, I mean, we were talking about how young should they start, you
Oh,
know, what chiropractic can do for pediatrics. Yeah, and I think really that's where it's got to start. But we are where we are now. So if we've got people coming to us for the first time in their 60s, 70s, 80s, you know, there's only so much we can do at that point. But we'll do our best. But it's all
what?
about, I mean, for us, our mission is transforming lives. And I want to go on to your mission as well, Donald. I'd love to delve into that by the end of our episode today. But you did say, like, so your biggest challenge, going back to our questions,
Yeah.
biggest challenge is scaling associate chiropractors in vitalistic space.
So,
Um,
so it's unpacking that university, and the other
yeah.
thing is, um, the, is the value of the chiropractic adjustment. I mean, I think our educational and even within the profession, that's been really devalued, and so because we don't own that value, we start to try and justify the fee by adding loads of other things in, such as time, lots of chat. And you hope that if you give them more time, chat, and your wonderful personality, they will like you, stay, pay, and refer instead of the value. I'm going to use something from my military life. When I was in the army, the doctrine was all about effects. You know, if the effect of suppressing Kosovo and stabilizing it could be done without a single soldier on the ground, that would have been a utopian ideal. In the end, I was only a mere pawn in that game. In the end, they decided we needed a force of 50,000 men and machines, and we invaded in order to achieve that effect. But if the effect that we're trying to achieve is normalization of the nervous system, the optimization of health can be done very efficiently, then I'm all about that. So my son works. He's 20 years old. He's getting paid by the hour, and so if he were to come and get one of my adjustments, he would have to work over 4 hours to pay for that adjustment. So in his mind, he might encapsulate that time value essence. And when a student graduates from university, they're probably in debt, and they've also come out of the student clinic where their aim is to get numbers. Now you want them to ask people to transform their lives, but to do so, you want them to leave somewhere between £1,000 and £1,500 on the counter. They actually wouldn't do that themselves because they don't have £1,500 and they haven't valued it to that point. So that's another big challenge in terms of getting graduates into the chiropractic workspace.
Oh, yeah, totally. I'm totally with you on that one. So in terms of scaling that, though, I mean, how do you go about finding chiropractors? So, for any associate-based businesses or hybrid owners, I mean, where do you find these vitalistic chiropractors? Do you have to hire them from abroad? Do you have to hire them from the UK clinics and just nurture them into what would you call a vitalistic brain-based chiropractor?
A little
What
bit
do
of
you do
both.
there?
A
Yeah.
little a little bit of both. As a business owner, I'm sure you're aware the strategic weakness in chiropractic at the moment is a lack of graduate chiropractors, and too many. A little bit like our leaky bucket of patients, there's too many leaving before they give it a go for a couple of years, and then sadly let go of all that education and experience and go off and do something else. So we're very short of chiropractors per se. I'm okay, by the way, as a vitalistic chiropractor with a broad parish of chiropractic. I'm really fine. If sports chiropractic is your jam, go and do that. If you want to do dry needling and nutrition, it's well within our license. Go do that. I'm after people who are really into what I do, and I would like to attract them to come and work for me. What we've found is a lot of people, or some people, have wanted, or at least on the outside, they think they wanted, but they still get here and unpacking their old, I don't like this expression, but unpacking their old toolbox and unpacking their mindset from where they've been through college or whether they've been through previous associate jobs is actually really hard to get them into the value of what we do.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
answer to your question, We have recruited from abroad, and we've also recruited locally. And I actually had on my vision board to set my business up as a postgraduate university. I wanted to provide a really safe, growing space for people to come from university in and get that mentorship and training. And I have enjoyed that, but I have found it harder than I thought I would.
Yeah, you're almost creating a graduate program, and we've had to do the same. I mean, I don't know about you, but the interviews that we've done this year, I mean, I love our new grads to bits, and they'll probably be listening to this, but we had to put them through grueling interview processes. I mean, we rejected a lot of chiropractors this year that wanted to work for our clinic because, not because of their personalities, just because they weren't ready for it. And they were just stronger applicants that aligned more to our core values. They aligned more to our mission. But ultimately, the chiropractors that are joining us now, and some of them are just starting their onboarding training, there is so much that they need to learn to transition from student to chiropractor in our clinics because our standards are set so high. Because we are a premium clinic, we charge premium pricing, and therefore we want to give a premium experience. And in order to do that, they need to be performing at their highest possible level, and there's a lot of mindset shifts that are needed in order to do that. So we put them through grueling interview processes. We did OSLers at interviews because they no longer have OSLers. Certainly at the HSU, there's no exit OSLer, there's no topic exam. I remember graduating in 2018, and our last exams were the topic paper, which was everything we'd learned for the last 5 years in one exam. That's gone. The exit Osler has gone, so the actual practical side and reading X-rays and being tested on that in a very high pressure situation is gone. So it almost forced you at that point to knuckle down and study everything to make sure you were ready to be unleashed on the public. And as far as I'm aware, and I'm happy for someone to correct me if I'm wrong. Please reach out to me if I'm wrong. That's not the case according to my chiropractors that have just graduated. And that's concerning. But what it means as business owners is that we have to go that step further now to really make sure that these chiropractors are ready to be unleashed on the public, and they are first of all safe, and second of all, they can provide the experience that's going to help transform lives.
I think, listen, Andy, I'm very jealous of you being able to interview and turn so many people away. I think clearly that's testament to what you've built. I think location might help a little bit, but you've clearly built something that people want to be a part of. Um, if I were to give some interference, some more advice there, I hope that I'm still humble. And if associates and young associates are listening, just remember, graduating with that piece of paper is like a learner driver. You're the most dangerous, lethal driver on the road. Your insurance is massive because of that. And actually, getting through university is a big deal. It's hard, and you've sacrificed for your life, but you've got through one journey, and you're only just at the beginning of another one. And if I were to say one thing to you, just be really, really humble, because if you're not humble, then life's going to be hard, and you're going to feel like you're constantly going to, just be really humble, be aware how much you have to learn. And if you don't think you've got a lot to learn, every single year I've been in practice, I've looked back at just 1 year earlier and wondered how the hell anybody got better. But you know what I mean? It's such a learning experience. And and I've still got loads of patients from year one in practice. And they've been through such a slow evolution process, they probably don't really even notice the difference. Most of it's going on up in here. But be really, really humble, because when you've graduated, you're just starting a long, don't sprint the marathon. It is being successful in practice is a long-term business, and you want to stay happy and enthusiastic and empowered the whole through, but be really humble, because if you think you've got it right at the beginning, you're in serious trouble.
Yeah, talk about being humble. I'm so grateful for being in the position that I'm in. You know, we are one of the, I'd like to say we're one of the largest providers of chiropractic in Dorset. I'm pretty sure we are. We've just hit,
I would guess probably in the UK, to be honest.
well, let's see. Let's see. I know there's a couple that come to mind that, I
Yeah,
know Kenilworth Chiropractic, they're doing pretty well, Pete and Cindy.
yeah, yeah.
Incredible results there. And some of the other life chiropractic clinics are doing really well. But we've just hit 400 Google reviews. We're seeing just over 600 visits a week. Now we're just pushing past that. So we're really pushing our limits. And we've got, good pricing to match that too. So, things are heading in the right direction. Um, but every level has a new devil, as they say. So with growth becomes more systems and strategies and processes that need to be put into place to make sure that the client doesn't notice that shift in growth. For example, today we've got 20 parking spaces in our car park at our clinic, and I could not find a single one. So I had to wait 5 minutes to get a parking space at my own clinic, which is
Isn't
hilarious.
that wonderful? That is really a
It's a
testament.
good problem to have. But I've always said that good clarity for my staff equals good leadership. If I'm to be a good leader, they need to understand what the mission is. Again, purpose, passion, mission. Having that clarity on what the vision is always really, really important when leading a team. And for you, Donald, I mean, what would you say helps create clarity for your team and your associates? Like things like systems, vision, pricing. I mean, what do you use to help elevate them and the clinic?
So we'll just delve into the mission quickly. Our
Yeah.
mission is to shift the dial on healthcare in the Scottish borders and beyond. I do attract people from quite a long way away now, and beyond by creating. Here's the thing: lifelong, they stay proactive healthcare advocates. These guys are proactive, lifelong healthcare advocates. They're your your mavens. You know, they're the ones who are promoting this, and that's the intention. So that's pretty clear mission. We have brain-based chiropractic as a system. That is the system you use. um, I don't want my people to be mini me's. I do want them to have some level of health expression, but there are a few minimum things they have to have done in every visit to. And the reason for that, associates, is you're always going to leave, and somebody else is going to have to fill your diary, and you're going to go on holiday, and I'm going to see your patients or another associate. So we've all got to be able to be interchangeable. And the third reason is it works. Okay, so there we go. We do train. We do quite a lot of training right at the beginning. Um, I did hear once, no, more than once. I heard a lot that a lot of new grads were looking for a package, but what they were really looking for was mentorship and training, and that's certainly true in the beginning. But I certainly am aware with associates that the level of mentorship and training that they think is appropriate does wane after a while, and when you
What do you think they're looking for? How much mentorship do you think they're looking for, and how much do you think they really need?
it
It
varies.
varies on the person, doesn't it? I get that, but I mean, if say I'm a new grad or I'm an associate joining your practice, how long will it take me to go through your mentorship program, your graduate scheme, if we like? I mean, what's the
I think
process?
really,
Are we
I think
talking weeks before I can see patients? We're talking months?
no, no, no. I like people to get started really early.
Yeah,
I give them the basics, and I am aware that there might be some lost capital on the way. In terms of new patients, perhaps.
in
Yeah,
the short term, yes, in the
yeah.
short term.
Yeah, yeah, and then a process of constantly refining, meeting on one-to-ones or group training, and go through it. I do expect them all, though, to do a lot of self growth, self development, particularly in the early days where they've got white spaces in their diaries. That should always be filled with learning something. If you're there, don't waste it on social media. Get busy, because that's what I did. In the beginning. But then you and I are business owners. I was incredibly motivated. Ironically, in the beginning, I was very motivated by the fact that I was £100,000 in debt and I had a family of five to feed. Um, now I have the freedom in my life to be motivated by actually wanting to kick a dent in the universe and change the
Yeah,
world.
you're motivated by mission now. I mean, they're not a personal mission anymore. It's I guess it's almost like a legacy mission, if you like, by the sounds of things. Not that. See, I'm in two minds with this. It's like, do I really care about my legacy that's going to carry on for the next 100 years? Because people probably won't know who I am in 100 years. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But is it more important
You
that I
never
make
know
an
how
impact?
far. You never know how far something. Listen, Kurt,
Yeah.
you, Andy. Sorry, in 80 years' time, somebody who you will never know of will become a chiropractor because they were adjusted by somebody you never met, who was adjusted by somebody you never met, who inspired them to become a chiropractor by somebody you mentored. Do you know what I mean? Don't ever underestimate. You know, your legacy doesn't have to be bricks and mortar and your name on a building and a statue in Bournemouth. Okay. Personally, I want to be cremated and my remains. Well, listen, I'm in two minds. You know, I might donate my body to a chiropractic college to be carved up into little bits. But to be honest, as far as my personal being is, certainly I wouldn't mind being, dropped in a river, a bunch of ashes, and float away down to sea because that's my physical being. I look at my legacy as, number one, have I actually shifted the dial? Have I changed the course of people's lives where I live, directly through my hands, through the hands of my employees and my associates? And the answer is we are.
Mhm.
We only see about 2% of our area, so about 2,000 people in an area of about 100,000. But that's just our clinic. That's changing 2,000 lives, and you have no idea. You get a single mum, and you adjust her, and now her three kids are happier, and they go to school, and they're happier, and that's having a ripple effect. So you have no idea how big a ripple you're having, and I think we're doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but the reason we started Luminate really was I was coaching before COVID in a really bad, unsystemized way, and I let COVID kind of kill it. And then I got my practice manager in my chiropractic clinic and my business partner Laurie got together, and I was ready to go because actually, like I said to you just now, in the last 5 years, is that it's that compound interest. Suddenly, the snowball effect was big enough that I actually felt that I have got something big to offer the world. And, through my one-to-one coaching, group coaching, seminars, and so on, I'm indirectly having a much bigger impact on the planet than I can in the town of Galashiels in the Scottish borders where
Mm.
I'm living right now. And I love that because my legacy, I don't want a building or a statue or an award or anything like that. The legacy with the coaching is that, one of my clients who's doubled his practice this year, um, he's going to kick such a massive dent in the universe that he will have associates, and he's already inspired people to go to chiropractic colleges, and he's been out of college 3 years. That's that knock-on effect of a
Yeah.
legacy.
Yes. No, I hear you totally. And it's all about, I mean, for me, it's about creating that impact. I mean, my mission for Clinic Scale is, we want to transform lives every adjustment at a time, one adjustment at a time. And certainly within our clinics, we do that actively now. But if I can coach people to do the same using our system softwares, processes, then wouldn't that be great if we could just have more people getting access to
Absolutely.
chiropractic through good marketing, through good sales, through good systems, strategies, through the hiring processes? That's ultimately the goal for us. But I know where my limitations are, and you've got years on me in terms of, and years in experience on me in terms of your your technique. No, there's a few in here. In terms of technique and what what you've been exposed to. So I would always know that at this stage in my career that you would be the guy to go to for brain-based chiropractic. I'd definitely point people in your direction for that, like I would point people in the direction of Steve Williams for pediatric
Yes,
care.
absolutely.
So
I've
it's
done
knowing what your strengths
great.
are and staying in your lane, isn't it? And knowing when to refer out, right?
Absolutely. But Pareto's principle, the 80-20 principle?
Yes.
Let's stick my neck on the block. I'm going to say 20% of the 3,500 chiropractors in the UK, that's about 650, 700 people, are probably making 80% of the impact of the whole profession. Now, can you imagine that if those 80% that aren't making a difference actually just stood up a little taller, told the truth, worked on themselves, and actually had a real desire to make a difference, that all of a sudden that amplification effect of what our profession can have on humanity is enormous. I won't shy away from that. You guys are scaling, we're scaling. I think we're going to see about 550 this week in our clinic.
It's incredible numbers. I mean, they are incredible. I mean, just imagine what that even looks like. It's hard to imagine what that looks like. You're just used to seeing them come in and out of the clinic. But imagine if they all came at the same time and just,
Yeah.
wow, it's a
And
lot
so
of people. That's a lot of people.
absolutely. And we're still trying to scale in our clinic. We're still trying to get some of our chiropractors busier, because I think, we've got we should be around about 800 a week with the skill set we have. But imagine that some of the challenges, I know our mutual friend, Roy Raphael, he said, you're always going to have, he said something that he had to get over as a business owner was that there was always going to be a drop in standards at some point. You try incredibly hard to maintain a set of standards, and maintaining that set of standards is really hard, and it's been a real challenge.
Yeah.
It has been, but in my coaching, I'm into systems. Systems really simplify your life and give you freedom. I think mindset, and this has come from my military life. I'm very big into the be do have philosophy. That's why it's who you are as a person. That's why you're a business owner, and that's why I'm a business owner. And by the way, not everybody has to be a business owner. Some people be very happy being associates. It's the best place for you. Don't even try, um, because it's not you. Make sure that you go to work every day with the happiness of a child feeding a duck, and you'll be happy for the rest of your life. But you've got to work on up here. I'm just very happy that I've fallen in love with chiropractic, which makes it so easy.
Yeah, yeah, I do agree with you. Some chiropractors, some associates are just not ready to become business owners too. It might just not be the right time for you. Get some reps under your belt. If you're just graduating, make sure you're good at the thing first. Like become a really great chiropractor. But you'll always be a student of chiropractic. I still consider myself a student of chiropractic. I'm always learning.
Get it,
Um,
learn from people like you, me. People I've learned from, Ryan Reeder, Mark Hudson, whoever's in the boat you want to float in, go float there.
yeah, and find out who you align to more. Like, do you relate to Donald's work? Do you relate to my work? Are there other coaches out there that you relate to? And it's okay to have more than one coach. Just make sure that you always have a coach at any one time.
Exactly.
That's the trick. That's the trick to it.
Exactly. Tiger Woods had a coach his whole career. And even he was the world number one for 11 years or something like that. How can anybody beat the world number one? They can't. But somebody knows how to make the world number one work better. And somebody has done everything before you. So just go find somebody you like, respect, and are going to look up to, who's done it before. And
Absolutely.
for my coaching, I'm sure you do too. We have an interview process, and I just don't want some people because they're just the wrong fit. But one of the things on one of those calls is I will give them a list of people who I think would be a right fit for them. Because there is somebody to fit everybody, and I say, go find the right person, but I'm not the right person for you.
Yeah, totally. And it's the same with chiropractic as well. If you have some of those patients that you think, look, if you want to see a chiropractor that doesn't align to my values, and they'll see you twice a week for 2 weeks and see how it goes. There's a guy down the road that will do that for you, no problem. I mean, that's like that in Christchurch for us. There is actually a guy down the road that will do that, no problem. Go see him.
You've got a very high density of chiropractors down there.
Yeah, but if that's the kind of person they want to see, then go for it. But this is how we practice, and we're not going to change how we practice for an individual person because we have integrity, like you said earlier. So Donald, wrapping things up, I just want to ask you just a couple of last questions. It's been a great episode today. Thank you so much for coming on. So looking,
My
yeah,
favorite topic, chiropractic.
yeah. Um, I follow a lot of Gary Vee's work. He talks about patience and long-term branding. Did it take years before your niche became recognized and scaled really well? Like your niche within Luminate and your chiropractic clinic, how long did that take from a branding perspective?
Luminate's new, so we're new kids on the block. Tweet Chiropractic Clinic, we rebranded in 2021, and that was a good exercise. That was really the rebranding was just the logo and the color, and but growing what the business means, that took years and a lot of iteration and a lot of pain and a lot of mistakes. But I would say to everybody, um, learn to fail faster. I'm not that. I don't love making a mistake. Okay, but yeah, I've always learned from them,
Yeah,
and I do love pushing out in new directions and trying different things. And if they fail, pivot quickly. And I would say one thing that I have learned to do is to make a mistake, pivot quickly. Just understand it, whether it's a hiring mistake, whether it's a technique mistake, whether it's a communication mistake, whether it's a money mistake, whether it's whatever it is, acknowledge your mistakes quickly, pivot, grow, and go. But it did take.
absolutely. Fail fast, right? Fail fast, pivot. We talk about in clinic scale within our leadership team. We talk about what are the key things we're going to do in this business to really move the needle. And one of the frameworks we're looking at is, first of all, think about what you're working on. Then collaborate with people within our team that can help get you there. Then it's about strategizing. Then you need to implement, and then you need to just get shit done.
I like the last one.
Yeah, and that's the part. We do a lot of thinking and strategizing at the start of a business. That's usually the case. But then if you're not getting anything done, then you're not moving anywhere, and you're not helping and fulfilling your mission because you're not actually doing anything. So it's important to make sure you do the thing. But ultimately, if you haven't got the strategizing right at the beginning, you could do a lot of things wrong. But at least take some action and fail fast. I mean, essentially, what you're learning from for all our listeners is, if you're coaching with someone like myself or Donald, you're learning from our failures. So we have failed a lot. I'm sure I can talk for Donald on this one. We have failed. We've tried and tested so much, and it's taking us years to get to this point. And we spent tens of thousands on marketing and coaching and all sorts to get to this point. So everything we're saying, there is pain, blood, sweat, and tears behind there, and that's why we have the right to talk about this.
It'll say a lot about you as to whether you think investing in yourself is an investment or a cost. If you're the sort of person who thinks it's a cost, then it'll always be a problem. But if you think that it's an investment, then you really are beginning to understand the meaning of how you're going to be successful. And I'm a coaching slut. I've had 6 or 7 coaches over the last 15 years. I'll
Yeah.
sleep with anybody for a while.
You can't coach someone unless you have a coach. Like, I know when I was coaching with Ryan Ryder, when I graduated, I coached with Ryan Ryder, and he said a coach without a coach is not a coach.
Really?
And that is so true. I mean, he had coaches when he was coaching me. And I know some of his coaches were the likes of like Russell Brunson. He said to me, Dan Kennedy was a big inspiration for him. And, now, I have my coaches too. And I coach with people within the chiropractic space because I never want to lose sight of the chiropractic side. And I have with, outside of the chiropractic space in other industries. And if you piece that all together, then you have a one system that works really well for coaching within our industry. So let's wrap it up. Donald,
Thanks for having me.
it's been a pleasure. Tony Robbins said, if you're not growing, you're dying. So what's coming up? What's coming up for Tweed Chiropractic and Luminate over the next couple of years? What's the next bold move? I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear, even if it's a little bit scary. I love to do things that challenge me, so I always push to the limit. So what's next for you? Like, what's that big scary thing that you're not sure about, but you're going to do it anyway?
Tweed Chiropractic Clinic's just been through a huge growth period, actually.
Yeah.
So Tweed's in a bit of stabilization at the moment. And I want that to give me the energetic time to grow Luminate. So we're just about so we're doing some one-to-one coaching. We're just about to start bi-weekly group coaching, which will be a lower buy-in. And that'll be more about teaching rather than a Q&A, but there will be Q&A offers. Then we've got our online courses coming out online. Now, I've never done an online course before. I've nearly finished filming brain-based chiropractic. So that's been a really big learning experience for me. And that's gonna enable us to sell the idea or get the idea and the information to places that we can't geographically go to, Australia, South America, and so on, all the time, because I'm still a dad and a husband and a business owner, and I'm already spending 18 weekends a year. I can't. There's a shortage of weekends. So that's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to getting that out into the world. But it is finding the bandwidth to do all of those things and still run a really busy chiropractic clinic, seeing nearly 600 people a week, and you're just like, ish. As Oprah Winfrey says, you can have everything you want, but just not all at once.
Yeah, totally. No, I definitely hear you. So yeah, what I'm hearing is that there's some exciting projects coming up. You've got some live teaching calls with a bit of Q&A in there. So if you want to learn more from Donald, we will put some information in the bio of this podcast. We'll put a few links in there that can lead you to Donald's work. But yeah, Donald,
Cheers, man.
thank you so much for sharing your time. You've really given it your all today. You've shared your wisdom, your insights. It's been so interesting hearing about your journey from being a disciplined soldier in the army all the way up to becoming an officer, being in Kosovo, Iraq, and many other places, to now building a vitalistic coaching movement. So it's really proof that you're a great leader. You've got so much clarity when you speak. And you're really serving and transforming our clinics and communities through your work. So brain-based care, brain-based chiropractic, Luminate, it's all really inspiring. If you elevate one chiropractor, you're elevating lives, and that ripple effect is so powerful, isn't it? So for everyone tuning in, if you want to take your practice deeper, grow with integrity, as Donald alluded to earlier. If you want to explore coaching seminars from Donald and Laurie, check out Luminate. They've got some upcoming events coming up. We'll put some details in there. And if you like more interviews like this, if you'd like to hear more, if you want to hear about some real strategies that actually work within the profession, and you want to hear some more inspiring clinic growth stories from the leading pioneers within our profession, make sure to subscribe to the Clinic Scale podcast. We release episodes every single week, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter, which will also be in the bio for exclusive insights into what we do. There's a lot of exciting projects coming your way, and thank you so much again, Donald. We really appreciated having you on the podcast today. You've not only inspired me, I know you'll inspire many listening. And please just keep doing what you're doing, impacting clients, associates, and the whole profession. So I appreciate you, and I'll see you soon.
Cheers, Andy. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Donald. Take care.